we'll move on to Derry and Dublin here. What do you make of Cluxton back anyway? What's the crack there?
It was startling. Like it was surprising, really, really surprising. Unquestionably, from what you see, and what you would hear very little, obviously, from the Dublin camp, but what you would see, is very evident that when he was there, he was the on-field general, he was the on-field leader, he was Jim Galvin's lieutenant, commander in chief, and I would say, even having his experience around the place, and I don't think it's a negative, right? I think a lot of people have sort of pushed on it as being a negative. But the goalkeeping crisis, okay, I would say he's come back from a mentoring perspective. I don't think he's going to play. I'll be shocked if he plays.
Do you
I'll be
think?
shocked. I'll be shocked.
I don't know about that.
Yeah.
I don't know about that.
You think he'll play?
I'll play. He'll play. He'll play.
Do you think?
100%. Yeah, he'll play. He'll play because do you know why? Do you know why? What you say?
Okay. No, go on, shout.
I think Desi is. I think Desi's under pressure. I think he's trying to squeeze one last All Ireland out of this team before it's too late. I don't think, as you said before, the young boys coming through aren't at that same caliber. Don't get me wrong here, it's very hard to be at that same caliber because the team that went before them was one of the best in history. So that's not a dig at them here. But I think Cluxton. I think you're right. I think the media, they really loved kind of. I don't know. He's obviously not an outfield player. Like it's like Tom Brady playing at 45 here. His leadership, and he has to kick out the bloody ball here. It's not like he's running up and down the pitch here. He could do this at 55 if he wants to. Let's be honest here.
It's the easy nowadays. See goalkeeping. That's the easy.
but go on.
On a serious note, I just to go back what you said about Dublin, right? And I think it was Big St. Ledger said to me actually during the week there. He's coaching in Dublin club football at the minute.
Yeah.
And he says, see that Dublin team is 6 in a row. They probably raised it to an unrealistic level. Everyone is trying to, like, we're probably comparing football now and teams now to the level. They were at an extraordinary level, and from a coaching perspective, they were at an extraordinary level. Probably a level we'll never ever see again from a coaching perspective. And there was so many different facets of their game. There's no point in getting into it now because that's not the team we're talking about on Sunday. But it's probably unfair for this team to be compared to that team, because the quality that you had, the strength and depth, and I'll be honest with you as well, I think Jim Gavin probably didn't get enough credit for keeping a lid on the Eagles and keeping a real fucking, like, you think about it, Enda, like, it could very easily have been a dressing room that would have got out of control very easily from an ego perspective, the money, the fame, and all that was kept very, very lid on it from Gavin. I thought Gavin did a superb job in keeping that very, very grounded. And probably the one man that went against the grain from, your old club mate, David, like Connolly, like he went against the grain of the team ethos. And like Jim wasn't too long pushed him to the side, and that was, that was interesting. That was interesting. That
I don't think he's ever put. I think Jim now. Go on.
I don't know. I think Jim was content if he was there. He was happy. If he wasn't there, I'd say he was happy enough. I don't think he was knocking his door down. And I think that was a big thing. That he was probably so systematic and everything was so. It has to be. It's team first. Whereas Damon maybe would have got a ball and tried something with the outside of the foot that was against the grain or didn't sit in with their stats, because Connolly was probably one of the most talented footballers we seen. He's absolute phenomenal footballer, but maybe just that, that maverick. Maybe maverick's the right word to use. Maybe Gavin just didn't want that type of maverick in his team.
But he did go back to him in 2019 for the 5 in a row, which was very surprising. Which I thought was the pressure coming onto it. I look at it. Believe it or not, German is probably one of the. In terms of being a team player, he's actually, but I'm not just saying this now, definitely not just saying this. In terms of being selfless, he's definitely more about the collective than he is about the individual. The way he plays the game. Yes, obviously, when you're on about the Maverick there, obviously the debacle in Carlow that year certainly didn't help, and his off-field stuff certainly didn't help with his kind of the public kind of figure he is like. But in terms of on the pitch, definitely. Jim would always say that he'd always say that in terms of he'd have no issue if he had an issue with Jim, he wouldn't have brought him back in 2019, Stevie. Do you know what I mean? It's just the fact he was a step above what was there. And they're going for 5 in a row. To be honest, the other egos, the likes of Philly McMahon, how he managed to hit the likes of him within the squad would be the one person I'd be questioning in terms of trying to keep them all happy together, like because you know I
been disruptive. Would he have been disruptive?
Look, I've never been in the dressing room with him, but yeah, look, I've heard reports. We'll put it like that. I've heard, I certainly would have found it hard maybe to play with him. Yeah, I definitely would. To be honest, look, I don't know enough about it within that dressing, but I think you're right in terms of Jim definitely did not get the credit he deserved in terms of holding it all together. When you go for 5 in a row and have that level of success, and there's always going to be boys pushing the boundaries here, and but the key thing was he had 30 players, he had a second team of 15 that if you were fucking acting out here, okay, that's fine. You'll be sitting on the line here beside me and next man up. So that was the key difference. And you saw that then in 21. You saw that in 21 when the boys and the squad wasn't there. And it just them fine margins, CV, like it does come back to bite you if you don't have that strong squad to beat that. It's like complacency is like a virus. If the top players aren't being challenged or a threat of being challenged, well then you're going to play within yourself, and it's human nature. You'll do just enough, and you need that fucking lad really pushing you on and in the second 15 to really drive the team on, the squad on, so to get to that next level. But yeah, look, it's with Cluxton here. I think you're right. Like I think it's positives here. Like obviously David O'Hanlon probably won't be too happy if he's dropped, but he's obviously he's only 23 here. I think.
I think for the goalkeepers, for anybody within the panel, like particularly some of those younger lads that I mentioned as well, too, the likes of Lee Gannon and Lorcan O'Dell and Eman Newcombe and stuff, the cornerback, like for all those lads too as well, just to have his presence around the changing room, and experience is obviously going to be. I'd say it's going to be a hugely positive thing, and I would say maybe what you might find now is the likes of Fenton and Con and Kilkenny and these guys that are, familiar face back in the change rooms that they've soldiered with, the 6 in a row, all of a sudden, the memories come back. But I suppose we're talking about Jim Gavin, but it probably wasn't easy for Desi either. Like, people forget as well, when he came in his first year, he won an All-Ireland. He won an All-Ireland, and that's probably forgotten about now. No one actually remembers that, because they were beaten last year, obviously, and everyone has obviously, calling for Desi's head. They were beaten with an injury time free kick from about 60 metres by Shani O'Shea.
And missing their best forward.
They could easily have won that game, right? And they could easily have beaten Galway in the final and won another All-Ireland. That's the fine margins. A kick of the ball. And I would say, despite the fact they're in Division 2 this year, I would say a large part of Dublin's preparation this year has been tapered and tailored round the summer and not the league. I think they knew deep down themselves that they were going to get out of Division 2, right? I don't think they would have expected to lose to Derry, right? But all of a sudden this weekend, if they beat Derry, they're Division 2 champions. All is forgotten, and they're coming into the championship bouncing, and I think it's an interesting game this Sunday. I think Derry, this is a big test for Derry. This is their biggest test since Galway, obviously, last year. And it's in Croke Park, where, they fell out of it last year in the second half. Whether the whole fucking Hawkeye debacle at halftime had an impact on them, coming out not knowing what the score was. All those wee things can play in your head, even though it was only about. But the Arse did fall out of it. They got a wee bit disjointed. I'll be very, very keen to see Derry this year, or this Sunday, against Dublin, and very, very keen to see if they can actually put the wrongs right from last year's semi-final nightmare.
I'd be interested to see Dublin's squad here, as in, like, is McCaffrey? Mannion came on the last day. McCaffrey, I don't know, is he back? What's his story?
Is he carrying a knock? Is he?
Yeah, like look, I still think, and this you kind of said it there, like with Ulster and Connacht, like they're going to be. They seem to be their schedule seems to be obviously more intense than the Leinster and Munster team. The Leinster and Munster teams definitely, Kerry and Dublin definitely have an advantage here because they've
The talk is Kerry's away for 10 days, are they, to Portugal? 10 days.
yeah. And
So,
the one thing I will say, Stevie, like players do like games every week, but management don't because they can't instill what they want in terms of coaching wise, what they want to be working on. It's very hard to go, as you know yourself, you've gone through the mill here. Like it's very hard to if you're going week on week here, like in between games, you're tipping around here. You're not exactly going full leather.
yeah, you see, from a coaching perspective, and like contact time is huge, right? Contact time
Yeah.
is priceless, right? So, what is your contact time? And as you talk about professional sport, if you're a Premiership team, you play on a Sunday. Man United play
Yeah.
Liverpool on a Sunday, and they play Newcastle the following Saturday. They're back
Yeah.
in Monday morning, and all of a sudden they've got contact time every single day in the lead up to
Yeah.
the game. You know, the
Yeah.
control of the play. You play Sunday, you mightn't see the players to Tuesday. You know, then on Tuesday you've got that small contact time. S&C coach needs a spit. Somebody else needs their bit. You know, your contact time is limited. You might see them Thursday then, and then you might not see them to the game on the Saturday, Sunday, because ultimately the players have lives too, and it's a
Yeah.
big demand for them to be out of the house. You know, 3 or 4 nights a week. Obviously, you know, with travel and stuff like that. So, totally agree with you. Contact time is huge, it's priceless, and that's why the likes of Kerry, for example, if they're getting 10 days in Portugal, like the contact time they have, the coaching they can do, the cohesion that they can build, you know, the conditioning that it's priceless. It's absolutely priceless. Like it's just like it's such a lopsided. We are one of the most obscure countries in the world. By we've got a fantastic product. I said this before in the show. We've got 32 teams. We've got the perfect number of teams that teams are crying out for. Competitions are crying out for, and we somehow managed to turn it into one of the most lopsided, maddest draws you've ever seen in your life. Like, and it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. And look, I think regardless of that, I think Derry will go full tilt on Sunday. I think Dublin will go full tilt on Sunday.
Yeah.
Whatever doubts we have over Galway and Mayo, this will be a humdinger. This will be two teams going at it to try and win
Yeah.
a and I said it on Sunday after the National League had ended. It's exactly what Gallagher wanted. It's exactly
Yeah.
what he wanted. He wanted a crack at the Dubs in Croke Park. And listen, Enda, I'll be honest with you. Like Derry are probably not getting enough credit for the work that Gallagher's done. Westmeath had a freak result against Antrim, right? A freak result. They scored 7 or 8 goals, and they ended up with a plus 54 score difference, right?
Yeah.
Derry have a plus 51 score difference. Okay, a score difference of 51 points, right? And one of the best defensive records in the country, if not the best. There's no one near that. The next team are plus 32 or something like that, right? There's no one near that, Derry. I don't think Rory Gallagher gets the credit for what he's done offensively to Derry. You know, people associated Derry a number of years ago with this defensive and, you know, a lot of bodies behind the ball. That's grand. But their offensive play has developed so well. And for me, you know, they're one of the most creative, you know, attacks in the country from a structure point of view. The goal chance they create, you know, the way they get width, depth, height into their attack, you know, their cut runs, their decoy runs, you know, their strike runners coming from late. They're so well drilled, but so well drilled. And you look as well, like the likes of Paul Cassidy, they're having a wonderful season. Patrick Cassidy, McGrogan, you know, players that aren't household names are brilliant footballers. And then obviously you have your wee bit of stardust with, you know, your Ethan Doherty, your Wiggins, and your Brendan Rodgers. Brendan Rodgers moved to the middle of the field last year for the Ulster game against for the Ulster final against Donegal was a masterstroke. Put Murphy in the back foot, you know, and he's obviously continued to play there for them in the middle of the field, you know, along with Glass. So listen, Derry won't be a million miles away, I'll tell you.
No, and you're on about there being lopsided. Like, if put it like this, if Mayo, Galway, Derry were all playing at Croke Park every single league game, like, what kind of advantage would that be in terms of, you know, trying to? So that's why I really
Yeah.
have a bee in my bonnet with the Croke Park thing. I just think it's mental how we allow it to happen in terms of. I said before, if I'm a young lad breaking into the Dublin squad here, like I know my angles within about 5 or 6 games in Croker. Like it being, as you said, contact time. If you're playing in the
Yeah.
pitch, like there's home and away games in soccer for a reason here. I just think it's, you know, them small
Yeah.
margins. I just think it's mental that I look at Derry. at the end of the day, I'd really look forward to see Derry in Croker this Sunday, just to see how they adapt, how they play the Dubs. Will they push a bit more on the kick out? Will they sit back? When will they push, or when will they sit back? As you said, the offensive game there, the way they get width and depth, and the way they cut. Dublin will ask all the questions after them. So this, to be honest, Stevie, this is the exact acid test I want to see as well. See if Derry are really All-Ireland contenders.
Yeah, and where Dublin are at, because this will tell us more. Like the halftime score again, Louth was 4-3, and watching the highlights, Louth opened them up 4 or 5 times for great goal chances, 4 or 5 times, and with all due respect to Louth, that's without Samuel Roy. Like if Louth are opening you up, there's no question that Derry will open you up, and that's the thing. And Croke Park, people talk about, Derry can't play that way in Croke Park. I think that's nonsense, absolute nonsense. Like, I think Croke Park, but I'm serious. I think Croke Park is it's a familiarity thing rather than a. It's actually a familiar. It's being familiar around and just being familiar with it. It's mad what it does to teams, and particularly teams that are not used to playing there.
Yeah, of course. But
because a lot.
You're pulling up to it, the first time you see Croke Park, it's like something around the Coliseum in Rome. Like it's a very impressive structure here. Like, and obviously when you're inside the stadium, I remember the first time I got out playing the warm up. It was one of their first. The team wasn't there for ages in 2011, and sure, all the boys just wanted to kick scores the first 5 minutes. But honest to God, we're all acting like fucking 10-year-olds here, and like we take the scraps that Croke Park give to us here, once in a blue. Obviously, if you're more successful, you get there more often. But it's just I'll never forget that, because I was just laughing at myself at the time, because the whole squad of 30 were literally just launching balls for about 5 turns, getting as many kicks and the goals as possible here. But look, it's
we pulled up on a lovely summer's day before the Leinster semi-final in Laois a years ago, and the boys spotted a few of their mates outside Quinn's. We had 3 or 4 boys that were looking off.